VoyMonk video voice vlog. Yep, just me doing a follow-up a little bit from last vlog yesterday about dry comedy. But I do want to preface, and I know it seems weird that I probably stop and pause and do these types of things. I know I'm not particularly worried about offending anybody, but I do want to make it clear, though, that I don't think of myself as some kind of a comedy expert. So when I'm critical, or I give an opinion about something, I do want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not putting myself as some kind of dictionary or a person who determines what comedy is. As lots of things, it's subjective as to who and what finds funny. But I just wanted to point that out because there are things that I find funny and things that obviously I don't. And that's all I'm basically talking about as far as comedy. What it's been, how it's developed, through my years, my experience. Like I said, I was talking about satire, news, and how they basically have kind of morphed into the same thing. So, like I said, as far as, dark comedy and dry comedy, my opinion is that it's not necessarily supposed to be one of those things you see coming, as opposed to, I would say the opposite, like slapstick comedy or, goofy comedy. You see that coming because, you're in a comedy, right? I would say somewhat of a middle ground is the observational comedy, which I think can kind of either be high or low comedy. And there's a difference between the two of them. Low, was it? I think it's high. I actually don't have the specific definition of it. There's high and low. I believe high comedy is more of like the dry, and then low comedy is more like the slapstick, but it could be the reverse. I don't know. Point is that, and see, this is why I'm not an expert. So, like I said, it's just my opinion, but, and I'm not pontificating. I'm just explaining what I like about comedy and what it is that I enjoy. And keep in mind, I think probably unlike almost any other time, just like with news and lots of other things were saturated, I think there's enough to be said about comedy where sometimes it's any and all in every place. I don't know that necessarily always makes every circumstance the better. But I would say that my favorite kind of comedy, probably more dry, more observational. I do like Jerry Seinfeld. I would say Curb Your Enthusiasm is pretty much my go-to as far as comedy. I like things that aren't as on your nose, but sometimes is. But usually if it is, it's one of those things that I'm usually going into it knowing that that's the kind of comedy I'm in for, as opposed to if I'm watching something that has comedy in it, and then, I'm kind of waiting to be surprised as to what kind of comedy is. That's, like I said, a little bit different. And sometimes satire, parody, I think can also be used as an excuse for maybe a lack of creativity to actually categorize sometimes certain content in a certain way. Specific example is that if one is trying to make biting criticism, but it doesn't go very well, and it's oftentimes either half thought out or, mostly just meant to be stinging, but it's observed in a very negative way because of the bad take. And then, of course, the pivot is, well, it was just comedy. It was just a joke. Everyone just doesn't have a sense of humor, that type of thing. I'm a bit less of a person that has patience for that kind of thing. It's like, or if it's just bad comedy that lands the wrong. And that's a little bit different. I mean, if you're actually a comedian and you're trying to be funny and that's just whatever, I find that a little bit different and stuff. I think tomorrow I'm going to try to hit on maybe some of my more specific favorite YouTube channels for comedy. So until tomorrow, take care.